Coming up, President Trump on the world stage, immigration, trade, and the war in Gaza.
Those who want peace should be united with one message: release the hostages now.
His message and rebuke to the United Nations General Assembly.
What is the purpose of the United Nations? The UN has such tremendous potential.
Plus, privacy behind the wheel.
I can see every single place that new owner has gone. From the school their kids go to the church, to where they work, to where their house is, physical address right in the driveway. I know everything about them.
The technologies harvesting your data while you drive, and the warnings from experts. And preserving our natural legacy.
Breathtaking. I mean, you see beauty that you've never seen before.
The efforts to protect national parks, facing budget cuts and staffing shortages. All this and more tonight on Faith Nation. President Trump facing world leaders at the United Nations. Good evening in Washington, I'm Jenna Browder. President Trump took center stage today at the UN General Assembly. He touted his administration's accomplishments over the last 8 months, calling this the golden age for America. He then turned his attention to the other nations present, urging them to follow the example of the U.S. when it comes to cracking down on illegal immigration, and condemning actions that he says have led to the ongoing wars in Gaza and Ukraine.
China and India are the primary funders of the ongoing war by continuing to purchase Russian oil. But inexcusably, even NATO countries have not cut off much Russian energy and Russian energy products. And Europe has to step it up. They can't be doing what they're doing. They're buying oil and gas from Russia while they're fighting Russia. As everyone knows, I have also been deeply engaged in seeking a ceasefire in Gaza, now as if to encourage continued conflict. Some of this body is seeking to unilaterally recognize a Palestinian state. The rewards would be too great for Hamas terrorists.
And the president not mincing words in the case with Russia's war with Ukraine. President Trump said if President Putin will not agree to a ceasefire, the U.S. will impose significant tariffs. He urged the rest of Europe to follow suit. Trump also announced his administration will lead an effort to end the development of biological weapons. Following his speech, he had private meetings with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky and the leaders of 8 Middle Eastern countries, including Saudi Arabia, Turkey, and Qatar. And for more, we're joined by CBN News senior international correspondent George Thomas. George, good to see you. Let's start off with some big news today. President Trump, he now says he thinks Ukraine can win back all of its land lost to Russia. That is a major shift for President Trump. George, what did you make of that? And what does this mean for the direction of this war?
8 months into the Trump administration's White House, significant. This was huge. I have not in the last 8 months heard anything remotely to what the president tweeted on Truth Social. He said, quote, "I think Ukraine, with the support of the European Union, is in a position to fight and win all of Ukraine back in its original form with time, patience, and the financial support of Europe, and in particular NATO. The original borders from where this war started is very much an option. Why not?" That is huge. As you can recollect, this administration has been hot on Zelensky and Ukraine, basically, in essence, not even blaming the Russians for starting this war 3 years ago and saying that, listen, you guys need to the Ukrainians, you need to figure, let's talk about peace and come to the reality that you're going to have to give up some land. You're going to lose some territory. Boy, oh boy, for him to do a complete turn and basically say that Ukraine, with the help of the European Union, with the help of NATO, can potentially win all of Ukraine. And then he goes on to say he could even go further than that, potentially going into Russian territory. The other thing he also said is because of the plummeting price of a barrel of oil. Remember, oil is so strategic to Russia's economy and war machine. He basically says to Russia, which is the second largest powerful army in the world, he says your actions basically in the last 3 years tantamount to you look like a paper tiger. basically insulting the second most powerful army in the world, that basically you could not take over Ukraine in 3 to 4 days. And look at where you are 3 years later, and you're hemorrhaging. This is big news, folks.
Yeah, turning to Gaza, the president also, he blasted the recognition of a Palestinian state he called it a reward for Hamas. George, what was the president, what was he challenging the other world leaders there to do in order to bring about peace in the Middle East?
Yeah, so basically today what happened at the start of the UN General Assembly, France, the UK, Canada, Portugal, Australia, Andorra, Belgium, Luxembourg, Malta, and Monaco all recognize the Palestinian state. But look, on paper, this is basically just a symbolic gesture. Nothing changes on the ground. There's reporting from Secretary of State Marco Rubio that Hamas has sent a letter directly to President Trump saying, will you get the Israelis to hold to a 60-day ceasefire, a truce, in exchange for releasing half of the hostages. Well, guess what? The president is not interested in 60 days. He doesn't want 10 people. He wants all of the hostages out, all 48, including the 20 who are alive and the 28 who are reportedly dead, and basically saying that, in order for peace to come to the Middle East, and especially in this intractable situation between the Israelis and the Hamas terrorist organization, we got to demand that all the hostages are released. And that was his message today to the UN body.
Yeah, and the president, he did not hold back on the issue of illegal immigration, George, calling it a threat to national identity and saying that, and this is a quote, he says it's destroying your countries. George, how are those kind of comments likely to land with leaders, especially in Europe?
Yeah, not very well. I mean, in the 56 minutes of his speech, I counted that he took quite a good chunk of that time talking about the flood of illegal immigrants coming to the European countries. He said, quote, "Your countries are going to hell. It's time to end the failed experiment of open doors, open borders." This absolutely affects today many of the European countries. And he's basically saying that this experiment to let in all these illegal immigrants is ruining your country. In fact, he even mentioned the concept of Sharia law. We have reported on that for a very long time, how these people from these Muslim countries come and they basically bring their cultures and their religion and don't really adapt to European societies. And in the process, they become a major threat to the continent. And that was something that the Trump administration has been constantly talking about, not just here in the United States, but also in continental Europe.
Okay, senior international correspondent George Thomas. George, always good to see you. Thank you. And coming up, tech-savvy cars and a big privacy problem. How your vehicle could be tracking more than just mileage. Welcome back. The Secret Service has discovered a major threat to New York City's telecommunications services. Agents have taken apart a huge hidden network involving more than 300 SIM servers with over 100,000 SIM cards. This discovery taking place as the city holds the United Nations General Assembly. The network was capable of sending 30 million encrypted anonymous text messages in just 1 minute, which could take out cell phone towers and black out cell service. Investigators say they have not discovered a plot against the UN General Assembly, but they do suspect it's backed by other nations. Well, modern cars are packed with tech, giving drivers more features than ever before. But there's one thing that they're not giving you, and that is privacy. They can track where you go, what you do, and even who you're with, and you don't even have to be in the car for it to collect your data. Dale Hurd has the story.
This may look like a car, however, it's more like a giant rolling sensor. From the tires to the entertainment system, tracking not only your driving habits, but recording personal information about you completely unrelated to driving. Modern cars have been called a privacy nightmare. Your car's #1 job is to get you places safely. But its #2 job is data collection. Your data. It's collecting it and sharing it. New cars can collect more data about you than anything else you own, including your cell phone, and for good reason. Driver data has been valued at $400 billion per year.
The saying in Silicon Valley is, if you're not paying for the product, you're the product. But what's strange with cars is that the average new car costs almost $50,000. You're still the product.
Andrea Amico is the founder and CEO of Privacy for Cars, which offers privacy solutions to the auto industry.
If you ask Americans how they feel about their car, they'll tell you it's an extension of their home. They feel it's a very private place.
It's far from private. A study by Mozilla's Privacy Not Included project found cars to be the worst product for privacy they've ever tested. The fine print on Nissan's privacy statement from 2023 says it may collect sensitive personal information including citizenship status, immigration status, race, national origin, religious or philosophical beliefs, sexual orientation, sexual activity, health diagnosis data, and genetic information. After an uproar, the company's most recent privacy statement omits the collection of sexual and genetic information. Security and privacy expert Thorne Klosowski.
I think that a lot of these privacy policies are written in a way that it just encompasses everything. So it's kind of hard to say on if they're actually collecting anything or if they're just written so that they could theoretically collect something.
Some new car owners have seen their premiums go up after their insurance company received their driving data.
Some stuff is more obvious. Am I slamming on the brakes really hard, or am I going through red lights when I shouldn't be? Some of them are a little bit less obvious. Which areas are you driving and what time are you driving?
The top automotive trade group in the U.S. says your car isn't spying on you, it's keeping you safe. The Alliance for Automotive Innovation says its members, which include most car companies, have pledged to meet or exceed commitments contained in the Consumer Privacy Protection Principles for Vehicle Technologies, which includes obtaining the owner's permission before using their data. Although during a car purchase, privacy may be the last thing on a car buyer's mind.
I bought a car recently, and it even took me, who pays attention to this stuff all the time, like a couple seconds before I realized what he was doing. And I was essentially agreeing to be sharing information with a third party.
Used cars have another privacy problem. This YouTuber said after selling his Volvo, the next owner never reset the car's security profile.
I can log in to my app and I can see every single place that new owner has gone. From the school their kids go to the church, to where they work, to where their house is, physical address right in the driveway. I know everything about them. All I have to do is an address search, and I know exactly who lives there.
Then there are kill switches that allow dealers or the government to shut off your car. Some car dealers already use them when a buyer falls behind in their payments. A federal mandate for a kill switch in all vehicles sold after 2026 was embedded into the 2021 Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. Some in Congress want it removed from the law.
A kill switch in an automobile that would monitor the driving of a vehicle and then stop the vehicle from operating if the car itself decides that the operator is not driving safely.
I do understand that the technology is very near to being developed that would allow for a passive type of system that would detect when a driver has an alcohol concentration above a predetermined level, and that would not allow the vehicle to be operated.
Polls show an overwhelming majority of car buyers want to control their own data. Klosowski says the first thing car buyers should do is shut off as much of the data collection as possible.
I would open up the settings of the infotainment system. I would start there, see if there's any privacy settings that you can change. Maybe look for any sort of indication that it might be sharing information with an insurance company or with a third party.
The old saying, buyer beware, has never been more true than when buying a new car. Dale Hurd, CBN News.
Up next, breathtaking views and a breaking point, why national parks could be in trouble. America's national parks are hosting record numbers of visitors as tourists from across the nation and the world come to experience their natural wonders. But recent federal budget cuts and staff shortages are putting the future of our parks in jeopardy. CBN's Brody Carter takes us to Zion National Park for a closer look.
It's said the national parks are America's best idea. We're hiking the Narrows here at Zion, southern Utah. It serves roughly 5 million people every year. But friends of the park and former national park employees tell me that big budget cuts from Washington are threatening these national gems and could potentially lead to park closures.
Humans have navigated this canyon for centuries. First came the ancestral Pueblan and Paiute tribes. Then settlers from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
Breathtaking. I mean, you see beauty that you've never seen before.
Efforts to protect this great temple of stone began in 1909 when it became Mukuntuweap National Monument. Renamed Zion by Mormon settlers, it received national park status in 1919.
We come here from Poland because we want to see your national parks.
As one of the system's most visited locations, second only to the Great Smoky Mountains, Zion has welcomed more than 100 million visitors. For rangers like Matthew Fink, wearing the iconic uniform is more than a job. It's a promise to protect this fragile resource and keep its visitors safe.
The mission of the National Park Service is to preserve and protect places like Zion for current and future generations. That's about as pure of a mission statement as I could imagine.
The promise bears more weight given that visitation has risen 80% over the last 15 years. That surge in foot traffic is now crashing into a wall of federal financial discipline. The Trump administration's first budget proposal would have slashed $1 billion from the National Park Service. While Congress didn't go that far, the so-called Big Beautiful Bill reduced the park budget by $267 million. Combined with a mandate to shrink the federal workforce, it's a 1-2 punch park advocates believe will push the system to a breaking point.
So since January, the National Park Service has lost about a quarter of its permanent workforce. So nearly 1 in 4 people are no longer in their jobs at the National Park Service. And this follows a decade of just decreased funding to the national parks at the same time that the parks have never been more popular. They reached a record 331 million recreational visits in 2024.
Cassidy Jones of the National Park Conservation Association speaks up for the park employees keeping quiet over fear of losing their jobs.
But this administration has been very clear that they do not want to talk about personnel issues. That's a directive that comes right from the Secretary of Interior's office. And so they're not commenting on the ways in which different tactics to shrink the federal workforce is affecting the Park Service's ability to do its job.
The near total hiring freeze has left roughly a quarter of Park Service jobs unfilled. Lack of funding for critical maintenance adds to an existing $22 billion backlog of repairs. And the pain goes beyond national parks to the service's 433 other sites, including monuments, battlefields, beaches, and historic landmarks.
So our role is to engage with local partners, the Park Service, and communities to stretch dollars as far as we can to fund critical projects, whether that's in education, conservation, search and rescue, or making sure that our park rangers have the resources and tools they need to do their jobs effectively.
For 96 years, Zion National Park Forever Project, a nonpartisan friends group, has worked to ensure a positive visitor experience. Donations alone, however, can't replace full-time federal workers. President Natalie Britt says lean rosters force hard trade-offs in key areas.
But as you have less and less people, there's 700 plus search and rescues in this park every year. There's a morale issue, right?
Yeah, you're good.
So when there's less people doing that, the impact to the public and the impact to our green and gray is certainly a challenge.
We generate $15 for every dollar we bring in. And we're only 1/15 of 1% of the entire national budget.
National parks are in Fred Fahrgren's blood. His father spent 2 decades as a Zion Ranger, giving Fred an education inside the park before he followed Dad's footsteps, serving 34 years himself.
For me, it's the place I grew up. It means a lot to me. Nowadays, it's hard to get people to come work for the National Park Service because we have housing problems. So I don't know where the Park Service can go unless there are additional funds provided.
Unfortunately, things could get worse. The Great American Outdoors Act, landmark legislation that's pumped billions into fixing the park system's aging infrastructure, is set to expire next year. Without congressional reauthorization, the $22 billion maintenance backlog will only grow.
My father was working as a ranger on the south rim of Grand Canyon when I was born.
Philip Bruick also served in the parks more than 3 decades. He fears more cuts could close or reduce access to those parks already struggling.
Now when you have parks that are 97, 98% personnel services, you don't have any money for overtime, you don't have money for supplies, you certainly don't have any money to repair something. And so I think Congress and the president go ahead with these kind of cuts. I think we may even see some parks closing down because they can't handle the management duties and responsibilities they have.
Back in Zion, the work continues, fueled by the mission to protect these places for future generations.
What I do believe is that the folks that do this job are so committed to being a force for good. You meet somebody in the green and gray, they are called by a bigger power to serve the public and to do the right thing.
Those wearing the uniform admit they can't do it alone. It will take Congress, communities, and individuals working together to help America's national parks thrive for generations to come.
The development of the national parks has proven to be one of the greatest treasures in America. Reporting in Zion National Park, Brody Carter, CBN News.
And still ahead, a group of dads running with strollers and a purpose. That's next on Faith Nation. Finally tonight, a run club to help dads stay fit and become better fathers. It's called the Dad's Stroller Running Club, and it's just one part of a larger group called Rolling with Dads. Personal trainer and nutritionist Hezekiah Johnson started the nonprofit with his friend Eric Martin Jr. after their own fathers passed away. The pair bonding over trying to raise their sons without their fathers to help guide them. They say they want to provide a space for other dads to connect and encourage each other.
We're trying to foster a community of fathers that need the ability to connect.
And the two men plan to expand and include daddy cooking classes and workshops focused on mental health and support. That's nice to see. There's a lot of that kind of thing for women, but definitely less for men, so that's great. All right, that's going to do it for Faith Nation tonight. Thank you so much for joining us. Have a great evening.